Okay. So don't worry about the answers you're gonna give. I merely want your opinion, your perspectives, and none of this will ever make it to the public eye with your name written on it. So you'll probably be M2 for as long as I care. So
For as long as you care.
yeah.
Okay.
So my first question would be: were you born between 1981 and 1996?
Yeah.
So you would be categorized as a millennial.
Yeah.
So are you interested in having a job or even a career in consulting?
Yeah, I hope to go there.
So what attracts you in this possibility?
For consulting, I like the idea of being able to have an intervention and then make change happen for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that now it's very exciting because there is such a transition from like old hierarchical methods into new technological stuff that is way more flexible. And I think that's a really exciting like transition that is going on right now. And so I think that is what drives me to go to consulting, but also the fact that you can work in teams and you're always in contact with people and you can travel around a lot. Like I've talked to some consultants and they say that while they do spend quite a lot of time on the road, they really appreciate then working with different clients and having the contact and that.
Mm-hmm. So what will you take into consideration when you're going to be looking for a job in consulting?
That's a bit different from what I just said. What I will take into consideration for a job is
Take your time.
Probably what they offer in terms of work-life balance, and also opportunities to develop and grow. Like I don't care if I'm going to be a junior consultant for a really long time or associate, but I do want to have the opportunity to choose like trajectories of trainings, so I can improve my skills and that I'm not always going to be stuck in one place, and that I also have the time and the resources to grow to full potential.
Okay, so out of what goes in your head, which of those things that you are considering right now, do you think will be the top one, like the one you'd be, the most important one for you?
I think indeed the work-life balance. Like I heard from a lot of consultants that they work a lot of over hours and that they in the beginning didn't have a work-life balance so much at all. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. So I will really look at that when I apply for a job.
What does work-life balance mean for you? Like if you were to describe to me work-life balance for you.
For me, it means that I can, like of course I have the obligations to work like 40, 45, maybe 50 hours a week, and that's okay. But then in the weekend, I don't want to be bothered by emails from a different workaholic. And I also want to have the freedom to say, okay, today I'm going to work from home because of this. Or I don't know, from other okay, this is for real far future, but some of the companies that I've spoken to have really nice like treatment for pregnant women, and if they want to build up a family, that's possible. And also, just that you don't have to work from 7:30 until 12 p.m., or 12 midnight, so that I can still have my social life next to that.
Okay. And which of the characteristics or the things would you be willing to let go most easily, like the one you would consider less important when you're going to be looking for a job?
I think for me it would be location. Like, of course, I would like to work somewhere in the Netherlands, but I don't care if it's going to be in Eindhoven or Utrecht or Amsterdam. And I also don't care if it's somewhere abroad. Like, if it's an exciting opportunity, I don't mind moving back to Germany or going to Asia somewhere, maybe China or the States. Location is really not an issue for me.
What would be the extreme location the extreme location, for example, the one who put you in an assignment in South Africa or Angola. Would you be okay with that?
I mean, on South Africa and Angola, I first have to do a little bit of research to prepare myself and see what is in it. And
so what I can tell you is that, for example, in South Africa, what is very often you have shootings going around. As a white woman in Angola, it's advisable that you do mostly a work home work trajectory, and you don't go around by yourself. You always have a personal driver. High security is something that is recommended.
Yeah. No, then I think I would like location is my lowest priority, but then safety is again kind of high. So yeah.
Okay. So when you think about getting a job in the future, what do you expect of the co-workers that you're gonna have?
I just hope that they are open and friendly and welcoming. That's first of all important to me, because a friend of mine, she just started working and she's like, yeah, her co-workers are really welcoming, but then co-workers from a different department are like their little clan, and then they don't really welcome strangers. And I also hope that they are like also giving 100% or like motivated to work together and competent. I don't know, we had a discussion during the intervention skills class, and then we also thought about like what is the ideal workplace. And for a lot of us, we noticed that we want people around us to also be smart and not like stupid. So you don't have to like really always like remind them of things and carry their weight, or like kind of pull them along because they're hired, so they have to work there. But we just want competent coworkers as well. So they
wasn't a concern for the class, for example, the general healthiness of the environment you're going to be working.
What do you mean by general health?
Like if people are very competitive, or if people are actually like really open and wanting to help you, or if they're doing it so they have some kind of leeway with you in the future.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah. For me, I think a little competition is good. Otherwise, you don't grow. Like you can, of course, it can go to the extent where it's all about competition, and then it gets really bad because you have too much pressure, and that causes too much stress. But I think some basic extent of wanting to be good at what you do is healthy, is good. But yeah, I want really like honest coworkers and a surrounding that you can trust, and also where it's okay to make mistakes, but then that someone can also jump in and be like, hey, let me tell you a little bit about this so that mistake doesn't happen again, so that you can learn from each other and that you can grow together. And there's no like backstabbing and I do you a favor so you do me one later. Like that's a given, but it shouldn't be so like harsh. Yeah.
When you say a little bit of competition, once again, what does that mean for you? Can you give me an example?
A little bit of competition. Well, for example, yeah, I noticed that during my studies here in my bachelor, that there was quite some competition among students to have high grades. And in most cases, it motivated me to also do stuff and study and work on my assignments and do a good job. But I also heard from others that it was too much for them and that they couldn't handle the pressure because they were constantly comparing themselves. So I think what I think is good competition is when it's motivating, and it's like motivating you to be a better version of yourself, or so that you always have a little bit of drive and don't get stuck.
And what do you expect of your superiors in your future workplace?
My superiors?
Yes, your boss or immediate boss and the layers above you.
I expect them to be approachable. I think that's really important. And I don't want to work for a boss who's like just the boss and you can't really talk to them. And if you want to talk to them, it has to go via their secretary and then appointments. I don't know. I would really like a down-to-earth person who you can approach about work things, who you can also somewhat negotiate with if you need like
Don't worry.
Okay.
It's movement, so yeah,
All right.
continue.
What was
It's
I
the
saying?
boss.
Oh yeah, the boss. I just want them to be like have an understanding of social things as well. I don't want them to be distant, and I want them also to mentor you in some cases, because usually they are a bit older and wiser and have more experience. So if you can get some feedback that is constructive and will help you through your career, that could be really great.
Okay. And what about the company? When you are analyzing the companies, what do you expect out of them? When you're considering different companies to work for?
I expect them. I actually.
Your cookie, if you think.
Yeah, I think what I expect of the company is that, okay, this comes out of the blue, but I want them to be aware of their ecological footprint. And I don't want to work for a company like Shell where they're like saying like greenwashing all the time. And I want companies to be more honest and making efforts to have a sustainable future.
Okay.
But otherwise, I also want them to have a culture that is accepting and friendly and also open to change.
Okay. Just rewinding a little bit, you talked about greenwashing. What is that?
That's when a company puts their practices, like twist them so that they seem sustainable and ecologically friendly, but then aren't. Because if you dig deeper, you find out, oh, they're still dumping all their waste into the ocean, but they call it like, they say they filter it, but they actually don't. Something like that.
Okay. Another question would be, what are you willing to offer in return for all of this that you've been telling me about?
What I'm offering the company in return?
Yeah.
Definitely that I will work hard. And that's what I do with most of the things. When I commit to something that I pull through, I work hard, I do my best, and I won't be the person who's like, oh, I don't like it now, so I'll quit. I do think a contract should be honored, so they'll have in me a hardworking person who is loyal to the company.
Okay. So it's funny that you mentioned loyalty. So as you are probably aware, retention of talent. It's something that has become a bit of a problem nowadays in companies all over the place. You know, you don't have a job for life, you have a job more like mid-term, short-term kind of thing. So in this sense, I have like two questions for you, which is like, first of all, between two similar job offers, what would make you choose one over the other? When you're comparing two job offers, what do you look at?
I think I'd look at, of course, I look at the wage and the working hours and what is expected of me and what suits me best. But if they're really, really similar and I couldn't decide, then I would probably approach consultants that are working there already to ask them if the company's portraying themselves as they really are. So then you have a more realistic and current view from a current employee there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. If that's what you would do, then yes. And what would make you leave your job in any company, and especially considering consulting?
I mean, I've done that before, that I was working somewhere and then I quit like immediately on the spot. And that was because I didn't get along with the coworkers and they were giving each other shit all the time. And
What type of shit were they giving each other? I'm sorry.
like it was a very basic job. I was working as a waitress,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a bar manager and a cook and other waiters, and basically everyone was blaming the waiters for doing everything wrong. And then at some point, the cook was giving me shit for not explaining a dish properly to a client or something. And I was like, how am I supposed to know? I just started here like 3 weeks ago. And I've never tried your dish because we're not allowed to eat that when we're working, and I never come here. So how am I supposed to know? And then I was like, yeah, this is not the first time that they're just blaming people for the sake of blaming them, as scapegoating. And then I was like, yeah, I don't want to work here because I'm not being happy. And that's something that is really important to me, that I go to a place where I enjoy working. So if I would quit a company, then it would be because I'm not happy with either where I'm going or with the people around me. It could be the culture, like that.
Okay. What would make you... So put yourself in that situation in which, like, you're not happy and you're about to quit. What would make you stay eventually?
What would make me stay is the prospect that things can change.
And how would that prospect present itself to you?
It could be a talk with my manager or any superior, who says, okay, I can get you out of this. If, let's say, the department is what is making me unhappy, the people there. And if the superior could say, okay, you know what, your talent is needed somewhere else in a company, so we can take you out of this department and place you somewhere else, then I would stay at the company. But if it's the opportunities to grow, I don't know, I just think that there are options where you can work something out with the company, that they like present you with some benefits, as in like they pay your education next to your next to your work, so you can develop, or that they can have another consultant come in and work out the team dynamics or something like that. I think if I can see that they're willing to put in the effort, then I think that would make me stay.
Sorry for insisting so much on this. Like, what would show you that they're willing? What concrete actions would show this to you?
Like concrete steps towards whatever I think is missing. Like if I'm unhappy. Okay, so I think there are two ways to. Well, either you can talk to superiors or your colleagues about what is making you unhappy, and you can talk and you can talk and you can talk and nothing happens. But if you talk to them and they're like, okay, we're picking up on this and we're trying to find a solution or to make things work, like I don't know how to say, like, what concrete actions
But that would be.
But if there would be like a momentum to go into one direction, then I would be like, okay, like we're not letting it sit because it's unimportant.
So if I understand correctly, and tell me if it's correct, if you were like talking to your manager and he's like, okay, Laura, I hear you, so we're gonna bring someone over, or we're gonna try to pick up your feedback and try to incorporate it or something like this, so maybe things change for you. This would be something that you would be happy and willing to stick around to see how it goes.
Yeah, and if that then turns into not like just constantly just talking about it. Yes, you're unhappy because of this, so we're going to do this, but we're never actually going to do it. And it just drags on and there are just words without actions.
Yeah.
Then I would say...
You would leave.
Yeah, with time I would definitely leave then.
Yeah.
Because then... You know what they say, actions speak louder than words? And if they use lengthy discussions about what could change and don't change anything, then I think it's pointless to stay.
Okay. I don't know, do you have any questions for me, or any insight that you've had during our conversation that maybe you think that it would be interesting to share with me?
Not on the spot, actually.
So
I can't think of anything right now.
it's fine. Let me just ask you a small little thing. Well, we're here. So this is actually from the other side, but I think it's always a very interesting point of view. Like, the consulting industry is often known by the demands it puts on its service providers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this is a belief that still goes around nowadays? Like, it's something that people share with one another? Yes, it's very demanding.
Yeah.
And
I've heard that from several instances where I met different companies. Like, I met people from Bain and Co. and Strategy and McKinsey and EY, and all of them said, yes, we have great work balance, and in the same, or almost in the same sentence, they say, yeah, I work 60 to 90 hours a week. I'm like, how? It's I mean, the demand, yes, it seems demanding.
yeah. And do you think that this may put off people from our generation from wanting to join consulting?
Oh, that depends a lot on the person, I think. For me, 90 hours really put me off. I don't want to work 90 hours a week, because what is a normal work day is 40, a week. I mean, yeah, 40 hours, maybe 45. So that's somewhere where I was like, if you work 90 hours a week, and that person said they also don't declare those hours because it's like a company norm not to, then I was like, well, this is definitely not a company that I want to work at. But then another person was also talking about like 60 hours a week, but then she was able to say, okay, if I work 60 hours this week, and then she can work less the next week, and then even it out, sort of, that, like, of course you have busier times and less busy times, so that even if you have to work 3 weeks in a row with 60 hours, that then afterwards you get like 20 hours a week or something. It's then more relaxed.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think is good.
Okay. No, that would be everything from my end. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. I'm just blabbering on.
blabber on, please.
No, I think that was quite interesting, because right now I am not specifically looking for a job anymore, because I decided to do my thesis next year, but it's still something that I'm looking out for, and especially when I had the meetings with the representatives of different companies, I sort of always ask the same questions, like, how's the work-life balance, how would you describe the culture, and it's really interesting to see how these people respond so differently, and they were all sort of young, I would say. They were, never older than 35 or something.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that some of them were like, oh, work-life balance and 90 hours, no problem, and others were like 60 hours a week, and then you can kind of even it out later. And yeah, I think this made me think more about what I want in a job, and how patient I am with changes.
Would you consider yourself someone patient with changes, or just you want them to happen ASAP?
Yeah, I am a patient person. Yes, I would say I am. But I'm also not the person that is going to be, how do you call it, pushed over or run over. I don't know how to say it, but just by everything that is unpleasant, and I won't say anything. So if I say, okay, I want this to change, and it's really, really bothering me, then I'm not going to be patient. But if I'm also the person who knows that changes take time, so then I can say, okay, I'll just wait and see if the efforts that they are making are actually successful.
Yeah, you said something interesting back there. So you were talking to these companies, and you always ask the same type of questions. Like, I believe that's something you mentioned. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's like transparency from the companies from the inside out. Like, is this something important for you? Feeling that?
Yeah.
How do you catch them on? I mean, what does transparency translate into for you?
Transparency, like, I think you can kind of notice that during a conversation if someone's not being transparent, or that's when asking questions really comes in handy, because they can, like, usually the company interactions that I had so far were they give a presentation, starting off with what they do, and then somewhere in the end talking about their culture and how great it is.
Yeah.
And then when you start asking questions more specifically about their culture, and then they speak from their experience, then you can notice that there could be a discrepancy between what they say and what they presented earlier. And they might not do it on purpose, but they're just doing it because they want to tell you the story that the company tells them to tell, and they want to tell their experience. So then you can see, okay, there could be a little bit of a discrepancy, and then it's up to you to say, okay, I'm going to do something with that or not, and how heavy it weighs for you.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think you did. There was also something back there about the feeling of it. I don't know. I definitely understand what you're saying, and I don't know. But yeah, it's
really stupid to say a feeling, I think, because feelings are just so
Intuition,
vague. It's intuition. You also get a feeling for the person that you're talking to. Like one person from a company that was talking about an okay week of 90 hours. He was talking really fast, and he was really enthusiastic about it the entire time, and I enjoyed listening to him because I thought, whoa, interesting. But then from that, I kind of got the impression that he's a performer under pressure, so that he works really well, and he really, really likes his work, and that he
performs better under pressure.
That he enjoys it so much, and that he is perhaps a workaholic, but because he likes it so much.
Yeah.
So then you can also kind of get a feel for that again.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe, I don't know if you have any connections in consulting or whatever, but is it your impression that maybe we are that different from previous generations? In general, and for example, as workers in consulting?
Generations?
I don't know if your dad works in consulting.
I've been recently thinking... That again.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that recently because, I don't know, anyways, it doesn't matter why I've been thinking about it, but a generation is so freaking broad. Like, I'm still in the same generation as my cousin who was born 2 years ago, but then there are also people in my generation who are 40, because, like, kind of generation wise, so I don't know, I think it's hard to, like, even define a generation, because but then let's say if I'm different from my dad, I would say definitely. My dad has been working at the same company for the last 20 years, climbing the hierarchy and not particularly enjoying it, but he stays with it because stability, security, and while I value these things as well, I don't think I would be able to stay in the same company for 20 years, because then it's basically your whole career, and it's, I don't know, at some point he even said to me he doesn't like it, and he's thinking about looking for a different job.
He's thinking about looking.
Yeah, he's thinking about looking. And then that was 4 years ago, and he's still at the same company, because they kind of keep him there with things like, oh, there might be a position in 2 years somewhere else, you know? Or once that person retires, you can take his spot. And then it's like, okay, but that person is retiring in 3 years, so it's another, okay. Well, for him, it's okay, and
I mean, it has been such a long time that he's been like 2 or other 3 years. It's not gonna hurt. Plus, you have the stability.
Yes, and also he's now in his mid-50s, so
he's gonna
after that he's in 10 years, I think. So it's also harder for him to find a job the longer he waits. So I think he's just gonna stay there until he retires. Yeah. So I think if I were to talk about my job the way he did, I would probably change it. But as long as the good, like in the first 10, 15 years that he worked at that company, he had great experiences, and he went, he was an expat twice in China, and he took the whole family with, and those were just amazing opportunities for him to work abroad and really set something up there as a project leader. And then he came back to Germany, and then it was like, yep, now the exciting phase is over, and now you have a 9-to-5 office job, and the projects that you're supervising are abroad, but you have to be here. So then he started disliking it, but then he didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.